Never has a less entertaining game felt like such noteworthy viewing. Sunday saw the rugby public glued to a game decided as a contest after 20 minutes, a result written in stone in the first quarter, with the biggest question remaining not how many points will Ireland score, but how many tackles will Michael Lamoureux make as he attempts to single-handedly offset two absent teammates. Well, I suppose the other question is, what do you guys want to talk about? Because this might be the easiest game to analyse where the tries came from since France picked Yoann Huget at fullback. For anyone who missed it, injury to Italy's outstanding hooker Gianmarco Lucchesi, followed by a red card for Jaime Pfeiffer, left Italy without a hooker and forced by a rarely seen law to dip down to 13 men, finishing the game with 12 against an Ireland side still boasting their full complement of 15. So how did Ireland utilise a two-man advantage to beat a side they were expected to beat comfortably anyway? And I don't know, maybe I'll talk about some good movies I've seen recently in amongst checking in on whether this means anything for Italy going forward and whether we learnt much about Ireland. And, did we? There's a common thing that starts to happen these days in warm-ups, World Cups, and then again when the title contenders come up against the minnow nations in pool play, where sides play just a percentage of their game plan so opposition coaches have less tape to review, meaning it's harder for them to analyse the side and work out ways to beat them. And this was how Ireland approached Sunday. Ireland's attack is quite specific. The idea is they have an enormous playbook of alignments, moves, ideas, and the fly half, be it Joey Carberry or Jackie Magazine Sex Continue, calls and deploys the shape or the move that fits how the opposition are aligned best for that moment whilst the ball is still coming out the ruck. To make a comparison, it's like if the England attack is the free combat of a Batman game, or Wales and France are an old arcade fighter where you want to create combos and chain moves together, Ireland's attack is more like in Pokemon. They trust the trainer, the fly half, to select a pre-learned move that will do the most damage to their opposition based on a type matchup. And lately, they've been incredible at selecting moves that will be super effective, be it the way they open up the Kiwis here, or these moves designed and deployed to pull Wales in incredibly narrow a few weeks ago. Everything you've seen here is pre-learned, just Ireland can remember significantly more than 4 moves at a time. And the one try Ireland did score before George and Thanos got to their opposition was a pretty great showing of this. Ireland makes some lovely ground through Mac Hansen and a subsequent carry as the team organise around them. They then fire the 2 tags right in the face of the miniature Leonardo Marin, playing senior rugby at centre for the first time ever, knowing there's a 0 chance of him and Garbisi making a dominant tackle on the Tigers. Ireland reload knowing the ball will be faster than the Italian fold, plotting a move to tie in the winger Pierre Bruno. Because the move is essentially called on the cuff, as is Ireland's way, Sheehan is later than they'd want to hit this hole so Padovani can successfully cut off the wide option and Bruno make the tackle. Ireland play a phase fast, Breck makes a brilliant tackle, but the inexperience of the Italian backs now kicks in. With Henshaw hitting the deck so fast, Michael Lamoureux, who typical of his utterly world-class work rate has just covered the full width of the field, sniffs a turnover and hoofs across to enter the ruck, almost winning the ball. However, none of the backs around him react to this and stand off, assuming Lamoureux will fill in here as what the coaches call the pillar. Carberry can call the most simple of shapes, this forward triangle. Omani fixes the man, Doris makes the half break and offloads then to Sheehan, who finds Carberry himself having anticipated the whole bastard thing. Gianmarco Lucchesi makes a pretty phenomenal attempt to get back, but it's ultimately quite a simple move, well identified and called by Carberry. Padovani is a fullback, he's never around rucks, and the other 3 backs about have a combined total of 15 caps. This is a position they've never been in, and that's exposed to create the moment they're going to learn from, and it's one of those moments Ireland is so good at identifying. The Irish on Sunday only pulled their most basic shapes and moves, but when executed well, these were enough to open up Italy. It's like Ireland treated the game like the first member of the Elite Four, and just used the same moves over and over to conserve the PP of their best attacks as they head into the more difficult rounds, holding back any more complicated or exciting patterns from view so they can deploy them in the final 2 matches against England and Scotland. They also reacted to the red card pretty well. If they opted to take off winger Pierre Bruno instead of an extra forward and just rely on Padovani and Ioane to cover the entire backfield, with Nines, Varney and Fusco hoovering up the space too. But here Ireland obviously have numbers, so Ioane comes up flat and Ringo stabs it into the empty backfield. Ioane then makes what might be described as a right pig's ear of it and concedes a scrum 5. Now, the laws dictate Italy must have 8 men in any uncontested scrum, and once you take out the scrum half as well, that leaves them with only 4 in the main line. So, Ireland's end Robbie Henshaw once again at Marine, knowing it'll be a simple soak-up tackle, hence quick ball. The Irish backs have flooded left before the tackle is even made, never mind before the Italian fold has happened, and it leaves Brex and Padovani defending half the field between the 2 of them. This would be doable, but for this beautiful dummy kick by Carberry, it just tempts Padovani out to cover it in case he does drop it on the boot, and sends the world's cutest fullback, Mike Lowry, onto Brex's outside. 20 metres either side to beat his man, and Padovani now stuck marking James Lowe. Larry skips aside the centre and crosses for a try on his international debut. Look at him, he's so cute. However, in reaction, Italy were pretty smart. They still need 8 bodies in the scrum. So here, the next one in midfield a few minutes later, they just put their lightest player, Marine, in at 8, and Varney abandons scrum half to drop back into the backline. Ireland feint left, and Paolo Garbisi spots this right away and absolutely races over to cover in case they kick, leaving a massive hole on this side. However, thankfully, Italy have Michele Lamero, who works incredibly hard at the scrum and shuts the space down. Lamero came into this year's Six Nations as, he's Italy's new captain, right? To most rugby fans, but if we did learn anything on Sunday, is that he's going to leave it in the heart of almost every one of those fans as a new personal hero. Not only did he handle this about as well as anyone could, sending teammates away before Serdar for him and keeping it to questions, never shouting or screaming, but his actual on-pitch actions are heroic. Michele Lamero is on track to become the first Six Nations player in the competition's 138-year history to ever make 100 tackles in a single tournament. Sunday was Michele Lamero's 11th start for Italy. Against England last year, he came off injured after 45 minutes, and in 9 of those over 10, he was the top tackler across both teams. And the stats don't even tell the full story of what a smart defender he is. Here he uses Ireland's phase shape idea against them. There's a big gap between Sestieri and his captain, so Ireland call this wraparound with James Lowe coming to hit that hole. Except the whole way, Lamero is staring at Lowe. In order to maximise sneak, Lowe is hitting the hole alone, and Lamero knows that, so chops him low to get him to ground as fast as possible, allowing Sestieri to get over the ball and win the turnover. This gap here is a trap laid by Lamero. He knows it's there, he knows Ireland will target it, and he never attempts to close it because he knows they could get something much better if he just leaves it ever so slightly open, and he very much enjoys finding out that suspicion was right. Oh, and if he wasn't enough of a legend already, he played the entire game with the Ukrainian flag strapped on both legs. It's a difficult time to be focused primarily on rugby, but Lamero showed that even within the sport, there are those who have their priorities nailed on. Kieran Crowley said at the start of the tournament the idea was by the end of the Six Nations, Italy will have developed a style and an identity, and whilst in most regards this is a game they want to forget forever, for helping build that, this match was kind of invaluable. Italy so far the Six Nations have been typified by the work rate of their forwards. I've discussed Lamero, but Lucchesi, Fischetti and Cannone have all been all effort all tournament, and that was really nicely complemented by how they approached the game once the red card was given. They dumped their usual expansive listen to Garbisi tactics in favour of going full, and it's a really unfortunate team to reference right now, I apologise, Russia at the 2019 World Cup. Kicking to piss Ireland off and trap them in their own territory instead of for their own necessary gain. It's damaged limitation in its most aggressive, angry form. They took any and all shots at goal, knowing scoring anything but a breakaway try would be almost impossible when it's 13 breaking down 15, creating the illusion of them almost being in the game at times. It's a very stark tactical change from the last few years under Crowley and Smith, who opted for exciting quick rugby without ever really being clinical at all. And there's something absolutely to take from this. Whilst they'll still likely want to deploy Paolo's plan, some experience of playing a more negative style might be a positive in helping them learn how to stay in the fight for long going back to 15 for the games against Scotland and Wales, probably their 2 most winnable matches of the championship. Because much more so than those games will likely be, this was pretty much a done deal early on. So many of the tries are so easy to pinpoint because one of the teams was down 2 players. Here Padovani is trusting he'll have time to cover and drift 2 men, but a great pass by Gibson Park means the ball gets to Lowe before he can. Easy handoff, easy draw and give, easy try when there's a man missing from the defensive line. And the Peter O'Mahony try is outstanding rugby. It's incredibly simple. Ireland play wide to wide and they force Italy to stretch the net as wide as they possibly can. The holes starting to appear in the middle as Carberry invites Van der Fleer through a gap about as big as his native province of Gauteng. In this passage, Ireland's average ruck speed is about 2 seconds. It's phenomenally fast. As are Ringroses' hands here as they send Peter O'Mahony over for a try. He won't celebrate because it's too important to him that every bout be an extremely fair chance to knock the absolute shit out of his opponent. O'Mahony even appeals to the referee for Italy to stay at 14 men here.
So you're going to remain 13.
Why do they have to replace?
It's law.
And then continues nagging the touch judges to make sure they don't go down to 13. It's the reason I love him. The only thing Peter O'Mahony likes more than the fight being fair is having the fight in the first place. And whilst Ireland were eager to hold back the PP on some moves next weekend, it'll come as a surprise to precisely no one that once Jumbo Cell Sex Lob comes off the pitch, Ireland are going to run a loop. But whereas Carberry has been quite a floaty presence throughout the game, the introduction of Sex Drive brings with it a straightness normally only found at Ed Sheeran gigs, and it prevents any Italian drifting, putting him and then Lowry through holes, and eventually the adorable little last line of defence over the try line. Ryan Baird's try was a case of Italy running out of players to act as blockers and leaving Fusco unprotected, and then left without covering the backfield without Bruno, making easy finish for the lock, which is really fantastic work by him, but it only takes one moment of individually being great to break down the international defence because Truman down. And then James Lowe's 2 tries are similar to Imani's, just pinpoint execution without varying the attack much. Against 30 men, if you play with enough pace and relative accuracy, you'll probably score 57 points. Easy enough. Watching live, I felt Andy Farrell would be fuming about how frequently Ireland couldn't show that accuracy, but on second viewing, I think he'll be actually quite pleased to get through the game with 5 points added to one column in the scoreline and 51 to another, without giving anything away. Ireland didn't play especially well on Sunday, but they kind of did exactly what they turned out to do. They dismantled the team who'd already had all the screws removed. I know the players would never admit it. I highly doubt they prepared in the week to be utterly ruthless anyway. It was more about getting the job done. They now head to Twickenham knowing the title isn't beyond them if they can pull off an away win at Andy Farrell's old stomping ground. Meanwhile, Italy face Scotland, hoping to last slightly longer without reverting to the team sheet numbers Andy Farrell also used to be intimately familiar with. It might not have been the most fascinating of games, but it's a match both teams can build on, whilst we fans refer to. You remember that one where Italy went down to 13 for likely some still slightly incredulous years to come? So, Moonfall was delightfully stupid. I liked Cyrano, but I understand if people wouldn't. Sing 2, surprisingly cute and quite funny. I really like the reinvention of Scream. I really think what they've done is interesting, and I think that's the way to do these movies, is to just kind of put one out every 10 years or so when the horror landscape has changed enough, and you've got enough to talk about in the movies to kind of be in conversation with, as well as being in conversation with the original in a way. Kind of nostalgia is very big at the minute. I really like Kimmy, which is on Now TV and Sky Cinema. Belle's very good. The anime, if you can find that as well. Parallel Mothers is great. Haven't got to see as much lately, obviously, with the Six Nations going on. But there we go. Top passion, I promise. Thank you for watching that. We are now over halfway through the Six Nations videos and now halfway through the Six Nations. 2 more hours to go. Wales England will be coming soon, probably early next week. And then beyond that, more rugby will be happening over the coming weeks. And I'll see you then for that. Thank you very much and see you soon.
Thanks so much.